listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. Radio's authority on the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology, celebrating 25 years of broadcasting around the world and to the great beyond.
The X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell is largely an opinion talk show. All opinions, comments, or statements of fact expressed by Rob McConnell's guests are strictly their own and are not to be construed as those of the X-Zone Radio Show or endorsed in any manner by Rob McConnell, Relmar McConnell Media Company, the X-Zone Broadcast Network, its affiliated networks, stations, employees, or advertisers.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X-Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And welcome back, everyone. This is the X-Zone. I am Rob McConnell. We're coming to you from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. You can always send an email to xzone at xzoneradiotv.com on all social media sites, X-Zone Radio TV, and our website, www.xzoneradiotv.com. And we come to you Monday through Friday from 6 p.m. Eastern until 10 p.m. Eastern, live from our center in Hamilton, on the Mutual Broadcast Network and the X-Zone Broadcast Network. Last year, about a year ago, I was at the Alien Cosmic Expo in Brantford, Ontario, as one of our companies here at Relmar was doing the video production of the speakers that were there. They included Paul Hellyer, Len KASTEN, Patty Greer, of course, Stanton Friedman, Michael Horn, just to name a few. I found Len KASTEN to be, well, the most interesting. Can I get away with using that, Craig? Yeah, interesting. And what we would like to do is I would like to play for you his presentation that he did on UFOs and Project Serpo. Now, Project Serpo apparently was an exchange between a planet and Earth with astronauts who went and spent time on this planet and then returned to Earth. Without further ado, this is Len KASTEN at the Alien Cosmic Expo from June the 28th last year, talking about Project Serpo.
It's my pleasure this morning to talk about a kind of esoteric subject that not too many people really know about. It's sort of been kept in the shadows, and yet it's very important because it opens up so many other doors about the whole experience, and it really opens a Pandora's box, actually, because if this story is true, as we all think it is, and I'm sure it is, and that we have sent 12 Americans to a remote planet as early as 1965, then all the other secrets start to tumble away. And that is indeed the case. If we had diplomatic relations with a distant civilization, 39 light years away, who supplied us with technology and information about the galaxy, just think of what that means. It's a doorway to the entire galaxy. In any case, let's start out. Is everybody ready? Okay. This all started in November of 2005. There's a UFO list. There's a UFO network called the UFO Thread List, consisting of about 150 people. Most of them are ex-insiders in one way or another, either intelligence or military, and they like to talk to each other on this UFO network. At the time that this began, the list at that time contained about 150 people, including many extremely well-known names in UFO research and or related or leading-edge scientific fields. Those on the list have differing views regarding the truth about this statement. However, they all eventually came to understand that it really happened. It started with 11 emails sent to the list talking about the fact that we had sent a team of Americans to a planet called Serpo, 39 light years away, on an exchange program. And in return, this civilization sent one of their members here. Our team stayed there for 13 years. And when these emails started to tumble into the list, it woke everybody up, and people started responding. And 2 or 3 of them who were in the know said, how does he know this, and why is he revealing this? And eventually they all got on board with it, and they asked one of the people on the list, Bill Ryan, to create a website dedicated to this information. So Bill did that. But let me talk a little bit about Anonymous.
All right, what we're going to do is we're going to hold this here until we come back from this short break we're going to be taking in about 30 seconds. This is the X-Zone. I am Rob McConnell. This is Len Kasten talking about Project Serpo from the 2015 Alien Cosmic Expo that was held in Brantford, Ontario. Not that far from us here in Hamilton. So when we come back from this break, we will continue right here on the X-Zone with yours truly, Rob McConnell.
Afterlife expert Roberta Grimes was the first one to say that dying can be fun. Now her best-selling book, The Fun of Dying, is available in stores worldwide. So if you wonder whether death ends life, how it feels to die, or what heaven might be like, The Fun of Dying was written for you. And if you have always been afraid of death, or if you worry that your life has no meaning, let The Fun of Dying ease your fears and bring new meaning to your life. Nothing said in The Fun of Dying is based on the teachings of any religion. Instead, Roberta draws on evidence to explain how death happens, how it feels, and what comes next. A lot of the best death-related evidence was produced in the first half of the 20th century. When it is put together with recent discoveries, it tells a consistent and amazing story. Roberta Grimes blogs and answers questions at robertagrimes.com. Her wonderful book, The Fun of Dying, is available on Amazon and at stores worldwide wherever books are sold. You're listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net.
While science pursues fact, magic accesses the quantum level, bridging random facts to form truth. As long as science and magic remain separate and polarized, the truth cannot be known. I'm Wilda Wiecka. Join me on the Science of Magic radio program dedicated to unification and evolution of consciousness. During each episode, I'll be speaking with experienced and respected scientists and mystics. From astrologers to astronomers, from medical doctors to shaman, the scientific method to dowsing and intuition, we will weave together information from seemingly divergent practices to promote unity and enlightenment. Join me, Wilda Wiecka, and the Science of Magic right here on the X Zone Broadcast Network. For more information, visit www.thescienceofmagic.net.
Starr began to demonstrate a metaphysical connection to the spirit world as a little girl. Her family noticed the connection, but it was a great-grandmother who told the family that Linnea was indeed gifted. The great-grandmother, who was also gifted, felt that Linnea had indeed inherited these attributes. It has been noticed that oftentimes such things are passed down through the generations. Linnea was also born with a caul, a thin white membrane across a newborn's face. Legend has it that if the baby is born with this caul, the child will have second sight, or what we call psychic abilities. Linnea Starr does past, present, and future, and has the gift of prophecy. It is written within scriptures that if you are able to give factual information, and prophecies indeed come true, the gift indeed comes from the divine realm. Linnea Starr does large interactive groups as well as private gatherings. For more information on Linnea Starr or to contact Linnea for a one-on-one consultation, visit her website at www.linneastar.com. That's www.linneastar.com. Welcome back, everyone. Without further ado, let's get back to this talk that Len KASTEN gave in 2015 at the Alien Cosmic Expo in, that was in Brantford, Ontario.
He was an ex-DIA executive or official who had worked for the DIA all of his life and was now heading up a team of 6 DIA people, 3 retired and 3 still active, who wanted this information known. Why now? Why 2005? Well, here's the reason. This trip took place in 1965. It all ended in 1980. Thank you. They came back in 1978, and the final report was written in 1980. The debriefing took place in 1979. It was a full year. And then the final report was written in 1980. So the information was released in 2005 because it was exactly 25 years after the final report was written. And that's what is necessary for all classified information. They must keep it secret for 25 years. After that, it can be released. So Anonymous now had a clear path to releasing it, and he did right on schedule in 2005. November of 2005 was the beginning of this whole thing. I met Bill Ryan in early 2006, and I got the whole story then, which was about 2 months after Anonymous had released it. Anonymous was an interesting guy. He would never give his full name. However, he was evidently very high up in the intelligence community. We know that because he was the editor of the Red Book. The Red Book is an extremely thick, very detailed account, summary, written and compiled by the government on UFO investigations, dating from 1947 to the present. It's updated every 5 years. What actually occurs is that as UFO reports come in and are deemed credible by the reporting government agency, whether it's military or civilian, they are routed to a special section of the government for a follow-up analysis. After that vetting process, they are then sent to a special group which then places them for final review for possible inclusion in the Red Book. And he says, Anonymous says he knows all this because he says, I have served as the editor for several editions of the Red Book and have written and delivered the executive summary for several sitting U.S. presidents. So you know he had to be very high up to be able to do that. So I know of what I speak, and when I say editor, it is not in the sense of the word you are familiar with. I do not correct or review any of the hundreds, if not thousands, of reports which are distilled into the final 5-year report for grammar and punctuation. I only present and include the most important, compelling cases in the Red Book, which includes an analysis by me and others of any trends, types of sightings, human contacts with the ETs, and any national security concerns our government or planet may have. My part is to write the executive summary and present it to the current sitting President of the United States. If there was a national security matter that presented itself, that 5-year published review of the Red Book would be interrupted, but that has never been necessary because we have a good relationship with our visitors. And when he says visitors, he's talking about ETs. And then he goes on to say, we did have visitors from 9 other star systems, besides the ones we're dealing with today. The Greys, of course, they came from a planet near Alpha Centauri. They were not from Zeta Reticuli. The third class came from a G2 star system in Leo. Another class of visitors came from a G2 star system in Epsilon Eridani. The visitors were classified by a code. The code which was classified in itself was ETE1, ETE2, ETE3. The Greys were ETE3, and so on. The Red Book lists 9 different visitors. We determined recently that some of the visitors were of the same type of race, but a mechanical life form. They were hybrid beings that were created in a laboratory rather than by natural birth. These creatures were more like robots, although they were intelligent and could make decisions. Is this working? Yeah, I guess it is. They might be the hostile visitors, as some people believe. So that's Anonymous, and he's maintained that posture of never revealing his name. But my own feeling is that if he's giving these reports to the president, he must be on MJ-12, and I believe he was on MJ-12. In any case, at this point in his life, he's probably around 80, and he probably had a lot to do with this program while he was a young man working for the DIA. That's my guess. And he might have been the one, my belief is he might have been the one at that time that gave the story to Spielberg, because Spielberg took it and ran with it and made the movie Close Encounters. So I think Anonymous was the one that gave him that story. I think Spielberg had some sort of deep throat giving him this information when he made Close Encounters. And it was probably him. And here's Bill. Bill was trained in mathematics and physics and psychology in Bristol University. He was a teacher. For the last 30 years, he's been a management consultant specializing in personal and team development, leadership training, and executive coaching. So Bill had the experience with the internet to be able to create the website, and that's why he was chosen. So he did a good job. The website, by the way, is still out there for anybody who's interested. It's been out there for about 14 years now. It was put out there in 2006. I'm sorry, so 9 years. It's still out there. It's serpo.org for those who are interested. If you want to go look at it, please do, but keep in mind there are about 15,000 words, and it's not organized very well. So you're going to have to dig through it, get all the information, but it's there. And you can back up what I'm telling you by going out there and looking at it. So Anonymous was faced with a decision as how to release the information. He decided to release it to the UFO list, which was moderated by a guy named Victor Martinez. Victor is an ex-teacher, former U.S. government employee. All we have for Victor is this, unfortunately. He wouldn't give us an up-to-date photo. Victor is a former government employee. He worked for a number of different federal law enforcement agencies. He has a long-standing personal interest in the subject of UFOs. He had been contacted by Anonymous. Anonymous contacted him, and Victor was the one responsible for bringing Bill Ryan into the picture and asking him to do the website. Anonymous had several options at his disposal. He could have released it to CBS, NBC, and Victor says this: CNN, CBS, NBC, ABC, 60 Minutes, Dateline, 2020, others would have demanded that the story be verified by the White House itself, meaning either Bush or Cheney at that time, or one of their subordinates with their implicit knowledge and permission, would have signed off on such a disclosure before being made public. Now, does anyone really believe that the single most secretive presidential administration in the past 50 years, I should say secretive, not secretive, or so, would sign off on verifying such a highly classified report? Does anyone in their right mind imagine that the White House spokesman is saying to one of these major news media outlets, "Oh yeah, wow, so you found out, someone leaked it to you guys. Okay, cat's out of the bag, go ahead, tell everybody." That's never going to happen. So that's why he released it only to his inner group. The Defense Intelligence Agency, many of you may not know what that is. In 1960, when Kennedy became president, he relied heavily on the CIA, and that was a big mistake for him. They were not very cooperative. And I think all of you probably know about the problems he had with the CIA in terms of the Bay of Pigs. So he and McNamara, who was his Secretary of Defense at that time, decided to create a whole new intelligence agency, and they created the DIA. The DIA is a Department of Defense combat support agency. The purpose of the DIA was to bring all the intelligence agencies of the militaries together into one overall intelligence agency. And it had to be militarily related, defense related, whereas the CIA is not really defense related. CIA is civilian. It's a civilian agency. By bringing the Army intelligence, the Navy intelligence, the Air Force intelligence together, they would get a better view. But really what it was all about was he was having his problems with the CIA. So they created a whole new intelligence agency in 1960. And when this story came up, well, let me give you a little bit of information about the DIA. They say our mission is to satisfy the military and military-related intelligence requirements of the Secretary of Defense. We plan, manage, and execute intelligence operations during peacetime, crisis, and war. We serve as the DoD lead for coordinating intelligence support to meet battlefield conditions. Our employees travel the world and meet and work closely with other professionals. Let me show you their current headquarters in Washington. We offer our employees personal development through many education, blah, 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 blah. Okay, we won't talk about that. In any case, when Kennedy became president in 1960 and was informed about this exchange program, he decided to give the whole thing to the DIA because the Bay of Pigs had caused a tremendous rift between Kennedy and, just going to go back to, between Kennedy and the CIA. They blamed the failure of the Bay of Pigs on Kennedy. He blamed it on them. They said they didn't get air support. He told them he would not give them air support. They claimed that these guys got killed not because they didn't get air support. So a lot of people think that's why he was assassinated. That's a very complicated story in itself. I don't want to get into that right now. But in any case, let me go back here. Kennedy decided to give the whole thing to the DIA.
All right, we're going to hold it there as Len KASTEN is proceeding to present his case to the people who were in attendance at the Alien Cosmic Expo last June in Brantford, Ontario. We'll continue this presentation on Project Serpo when we come back from this news break. You're listening to the X Zone. I am Rob McConnell, and we'll continue investigating the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology right after this.
Wouldn't you love to know the secret to everything? Well then, meet Dr. Kimberly McGeorge and her cutting-edge breakthrough knowledge that combines science with possibility. Dr. Kimberly brings real-life answers and healing to those open to alternative solutions. She teaches solution-based programs and classes that will change all areas of your life forever. Specializing in conscious creation, intuitive readings, and energy medicine, you can rapidly shift health, relationships, business, and money and abundance challenges quickly. Receive her best-selling book, Secret to Everything, at no cost by going to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone. That's right, transformation can start now. Just go to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone and receive Dr. Kimberly's book for free.
You're listening to the X Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. Thomas Jefferson was a Burgess of 27 when he met Martha Wales Skelton, a 22-year-old widowed heiress who was fondly called Patty by her family. They were married on January the 1st, 1772, and they took up residence in a cabin on the building site on top of a Virginia mountain that Thomas had named Monticello. As Thomas and Patty slowly built their first version of the great house at Monticello, the Revolutionary War was heating up. Patty, with difficulty, bore 5 children, but only 2 girls survived. Thomas's political career developed to the point where he was often away from home, but after he authored and signed the Declaration of Independence in Philadelphia, he resolved never again to leave his wife. He was elected the governor of Virginia, just as that state became the Revolution's last battleground. The Revolutionary War ended in 1781, and Thomas gladly retired altogether to my family, my farm, and my books. But Patty continued to want to bear her treasured husband a son, and late in the summer of 1782, she died of kidney failure at the age of 33, 4 months after having borne yet another girl. Thomas was so devastated by her death that he never remarried. He mourned her for the rest of his life, even as he helped to frame the peace in France and then became the first Secretary of State, the second Vice President, and the third President of the United States. This story is true. Thomas Jefferson was such an obsessive letter writer and record keeper that we know where he was and what he was doing nearly every day of his adult life. Every significant thing he says in My Thomas comes from his contemporary writings. My Thomas by Roberta Grimes is now available at Barnes & Noble, Costco, Target, Books A Million, Hudson Booksellers, Kmart, Walmart, Sam's Club, Walgreens, CVS, and online at Amazon.com. You can visit Roberta Grimes online at www.robertagrimes.com.
The scientist and the mystic have been on an age-old, relentless search with one thing in common. They seek truth. Their paths converge in the 40,000-year-old practice of shamanism, an ancient science delving to the quantum level of life, facilitating healing, manifestation, and evolution. I'm Gwilda Wiyaka, the founder and director of Path Home Shamanic Arts School, a unique Colorado State-certified occupational school, training shamanic practitioners and teachers. We also provide classes for empowering personal lives through shamanism. Our certification classes are in week-long segments enabling international participation, and online classes and long-distance shamanic healing sessions are available. Come discover the science of magic in the limitless world of shamanism. www.findyourpathhome.com.
Unwilling to be the government's deadly assassin, gifted psychic Kahara Mitchell went AWOL and ended up buried under rubble in the wake of a great tsunami. She regained consciousness far from Earth on the medical ship of a Daguerrean intergalactic fleet. Has she been rescued or abducted by aliens? The Chalice of Carrie, Kahira O'Donnell's latest paranormal science fiction romance, is the passionate story of an Earth woman and her destined mates, twin kings from another galaxy. Kahara uses her gifts fighting alongside Lords Rom and Ra in a war that will determine the destiny of galaxies. The Chalice of Carrie by Kahira O'Donnell is now available at KahiraO'Donnell.com or at Amazon.com.
You're listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. What happened in Benghazi is revealed by Nicholas Genix, author of Obama, Islam, and Benghazi. He informs the American people that President Obama deceived them by advocating a strong foreign policy prior to the 2012 presidential election, and Hillary Clinton supported this deception. As the title infers, there is a connection between Obama, Islam, and Benghazi. Ample evidence informs Americans that Obama's early indoctrination in the Quran developed an affinity for Islam, why the Quran is the source of discontent in many countries, and why the Obama foreign policy deception led to poor military action and caused the loss of American lives in Benghazi. Genix provides 36 questions for the Select Committee on Benghazi to validate if Americans are justified to mistrust President Obama and Hillary Clinton. An overview of Obama, Islam, and Benghazi is presented on the website www.futureofgodamen.com. That's www.futureofgodamen.com. Annie Callahan, dedicated to negotiating a position for Earth within the Daguerrean Coalition, had trained for 3 years to become an Earth ambassador. Yet, the very eve of her arrival at the capital ruling planet, she is claimed as destined mate to an oversized, mating-maddened vamp who swears he will never release her. Lord Aztaran, king of the Macian sector, has waited over 900 years for his destined mate. Having found her as an alpha vamp, he is unable to relinquish Annie, virtually holding her hostage until he can claim her. Yet Macians cannot survive without their mate's love. How could he strip her of her citizenship, her ambassadorship, and her freedom and expect to win her heart? With All That I Am by Kahira O'Donnell is the latest book in this exciting series, The Daguerrean Chronicles, guaranteed to keep readers coming back for more. With All That I Am by Kahira O'Donnell is available on Amazon.com and KahiraO'Donnell.com.
And welcome back to the X-Zone. I am Rob McConnell. We're coming to you from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. We are playing for you, the members of the X-Zone Nation, listening to the Mutual Broadcast Network and the X-Zone Broadcast Network, Len KASTEN, who was giving a presentation last year at the Alien Cosmic Expo in Brantford, Ontario. This is his presentation of Project Serpo. So without further ado, let's continue.
And that was very fortunate. And that's the reason we're here today, because if he had given it to the CIA, we never would have gotten the story today. But the DIA was dedicated to transparency. Kennedy was dedicated to transparency. Kennedy did not believe in secrecy. So the DIA got the story, got the program. And that's how it became to be released 25 years later. Let me go back here 1 minute. When this story was released in November of 2005 to the UFO thread list, 150 people, UFO Magazine got right on it and did a cover story on it right away. So this was from early 2006. Many of you may know about Bill Burns, the editor of UFO Magazine. He saw it immediately as a very important story. And he put a story in that issue, that early issue of 2000 of UFO Magazine. And in that story, how many of you have heard of Richard Doty? I'm just curious. Richard Doty was a member of the U.S. Air Force Office of Special Investigation. And Doty wrote an article on Serpo for that issue of magazine. And here's some of the things he says in that article. We can hypothesize that Anonymous may not even have had access to the 3,000-page document at all. Anonymous hardly has this report in his living room, just sitting there like a Sears catalog. So such a report would be guarded under the tightest security and the conditions of access highly restricted. It's worth remembering that it was not Anonymous who first mentioned the 3,000-page report. That was Paul McGovern. As for the photos, everyone, of course, wanted to see the photos of Serpo. If we sent 12 people to a distant planet, where are the photos? Where are the videos? They were kept under tight control. Needless to say, if and when the photos get revealed or released, it breaks wide open. As for the photos, they may again be in a different location, maybe not even in the U.S. Suppose Anonymous is receiving his information from a retired person who was involved in Project Serpo, who is, for example, now living in Thailand, Australia, or South Africa. The point is that if this story is 90% true, or even 10% true, it's still the story of the millennium. Some people cannot believe that 12 American astronauts, they weren't actually astronauts, could have made a trip to another planet nearly 40 light years away in 1965. It's just too much of a leap to believe it. And many of the UFO people that I know still do not believe it. They just can't buy it. Okay, let's proceed here. It all started with Roswell. In my book, Secret Journey to Planet Serpo, I talked about the fact that we sent a team of we sent a military task force to Antarctica in late 1946, headed up by Admiral Byrd. How many people have heard about Operation High Jump? We sent a team of 13 warships and a task force of 4,700 Marines to Antarctica to destroy the Nazi base, which we knew was there because the British had already found it. Everyone knew it was there. When Byrd's task force got to Antarctica, UFOs came out of the water and engaged the whole team, and they destroyed at least one ship. 68 Marines were killed. So Byrd had to turn around and go back, and he was furious. It was supposed to have been a 6-month operation, turned into a 2-month operation. And he spoke before Congress. He was questioned, and he told them that he thought that we should turn Antarctica into a thermonuclear test range because he knew that the Nazi base there was possibly, could possibly revive World War II and come and invade the United States. And if they had weapons like UFOs and saucers, it would be over before it began. So Congress didn't like the fact that Byrd was so outspoken. They told him they didn't want him giving any more interviews, and actually he ended up in a mental institution, and they kept him there. So Congress and various committees met and tried to decide what to do about the continuing Nazi presence. It was even a possibility that Hitler might still be alive, and actually he was. And the FBI knew it. He was in Argentina. So Hitler could be directing a return of the Third Reich. This time there would be the Fourth Reich. And there was a lot of panic in Congress. What are we going to do about this? So they thought about perhaps doing what Byrd had suggested, starting to use the nuclear option, and they thought it would blow a hole in the ion, the atmosphere. And as they were pondering this problem, an alien craft crashed into the desert outside of Roswell, New Mexico, and it became a whole new ballgame because we now had the possibility of developing the same technology with the aliens as friends. So there is no question that Roswell was indeed an alien craft. And we know that. Well, how do we know that? Because the CIA briefed President Reagan on the whole thing in 1981. Here's what they said. They said, Mr. President, the United States of America has been visited by extraterrestrial visitors since 1947. This is the CIA talking now, not even the DIA. We have proof of that. However, we have also taken some proof. We have some proof also that the Earth has been visited for many thousands of years by various races of extraterrestrial visitors. Mr. President, I'll just refer to those visits as ETs. In July 1947, a remarkable event occurred in New Mexico. During a storm, 2 ET spacecraft crashed. One crashed southwest of Corona, New Mexico, and one crashed near Datil, New Mexico. The U.S. Army eventually found both sites and recovered all of the debris and one live alien. I'll refer to this live alien as EBE. Here's the first crashed disk. This artwork by David Hardy is still incredible, and I use it all the time. It's really a great visual thing to look at. But here's a conception of the second disk, which crashed intact, but it wasn't found for 2 years. By that time, the 6 aliens on board had been completely, as you can see in this photo, completely decomposed, and so. But it was exactly the same as the other craft. And the entities on board were the same. And here's what he says. The president says, what does that mean? Do we have codes or a special terminology for this? The caretaker says, Mr. President, EBE means extraterrestrial biological entity. It was a code designated to this creature by the U.S. Army back in those days. This creature was not human, and we had to decide on a term for it. So scientists designated the creature EBE-1. We also referred to it as NOAH, N-O-A-H, for some reason. I have no idea why. There was a different terminology used by various aspects of the U.S. military. So Reagan says, do we or did we have others? The number 1 would seem to indicate we had others. The caretaker says, yes, we had others. Back then the term was EBE and no number designation. We'll explain how the others came into our knowledge. The president says, okay, sorry, I was just wondering, and I guess, well, I'm sure the briefing will cover this. Please continue. All the debris and the EBEs recovered from their first crash site were taken to Roswell Army Air Base, New Mexico. EBE was treated for some minor injuries and was then taken to Los Alamos National Laboratories, which was the safest and most secure location in the world. If he had been taken to the Pentagon, which is right in a busy intersection in Northern Virginia, it wouldn't have been very secure. Special accommodations were made for the alien. The debris was eventually transferred to Dayton, Ohio, home of the Air Force Foreign Technology Division. The second crash site wasn't discovered until 1949 by some ranchers. There were no live aliens at this site. All this debris went to Sandia Army Base in Albuquerque. The president says, okay, a question. Regarding the first site, how many aliens were in the spaceship? The caretaker says 5 dead aliens and 1 live and 1 alive. The bodies of the dead were transported to Wright Field in Ohio and kept in a form of deep freeze. They were later transported to Los Alamos, where special containers were made to keep the bodies from decaying. There were 4 dead aliens. There were 4 in the second crash site, not 6. Those bodies were in an advanced state of decay. They had been in the desert for the 2 years. Animals and time got to these bodies. The remains were transported to Sandia Base and eventually on to Los Alamos. We determined that both crashed spaceships were of similar design, and the bodies of the aliens were all identical. They looked exactly the same. They had the same height, weight, and physical features. Here are the photographs, Mr. President. And there's a pause while the president looks at the photographs. And the president says, can we classify them? I mean, can we contact them with anything, connect them with anything on Earth? And the caretaker says, no, Mr. President. They don't have any similar characteristics of a human with the exception of their eyes, ears, and a mouth. Their internal body organs are different, their skin is different, their eyes, ears, and even breathing is different. Their blood wasn't red, and their brain was entirely different from human. We could not classify any part of the aliens with humans. They had blood and skin, although considerably different than human skin. The president says, maybe I'm getting ahead, but do we know where they came from? Mars or our system or where? They said, no, they came from a planet 39 light years away. So that's the story of Roswell. That's the story of the briefing. Anyone who still doubts that Roswell took place or that there were alien craft, I think you should review this material.
I knew it. This is an alien, and you guys are from some government agency trying to keep it under wraps.
So there's the survivor. This artwork by Jim Nichols I still like to use, even though he's got the wrong configuration of the spaceship, because it shows the alien creeping away. And here's basically what they looked like. Now this particular sculpture was done by Cynthia Crawford. Anybody here know who Cynthia Crawford is? Cynthia lives in Phoenix. She gets psychic impressions of what all the aliens look like, and she gets them verified by another psychic, and she does sculptures of all of them. So in her booth, she's got little statues of all the aliens from all over the galaxy and beyond the galaxy. So if you ever get a chance to see her or talk to her or visit her booth, you're going to be amazed. Anyway, this is her rendition of the Ebens. And it does match up with what we just learned and what was reported by one of the witnesses, who I'll get into in a minute, named Frank Kaufman. Before we get to Kaufman, Kaufman is not very well known, but there were several TV shows about Roswell where they did talk to Kaufman. Some of the early shows. He was there. He was a staff sergeant, I believe, and he saw the bodies. And he was interviewed by, I think that he was interviewed by Stanton. I'm not sure. In any case, here is what Frank Kaufman said about what he saw. Want to play the video?
Time hiding it, they get curious.
Tell me about the aliens. Tell me about the bodies that were found. Were they good-looking people, or were they...
Oh, yeah, they were. They didn't have any of these, slanted eyes or horny fingers, anything like that. They were... I don't know whether you want to call them people or so. I call them people because that's what I'm accustomed to looking at somebody as people, see. They were good-looking people. Fine skin. They were kind of ash-colored. That was the color of their skin. Eyes were just a little bit larger than ours, more pronounced. Small nose, a little small mouth, very small ears, see. No hair. Very fine features, very well built. Maybe 5'4", 5'5" in height. That's what I can remember seeing.
Frank, in your personal opinion, what happened here in 1947 in Roswell, New Mexico? What is your bottom line?
In 1947, I can only put it this way, that a craft of unknown origin crashed north of Roswell. It was recovered with bodies not of this earth, which proved that we are not alone in this vast universe of ours.
Okay, that's Frank. I think he was one of the most credible witnesses for Roswell, and I think Don Schmidt missed out when he didn't report more about Kaufman. The alien was taken to Los Alamos and questioned there. We'll talk about that in a minute. But something else happened that was quite interesting. Some of the military people realized that little craft that crashed at Roswell could not possibly have come from a distant star system. It was too small to make an interstellar journey. That there had to be other craft, perhaps in a mothership, circling the Earth. But we'll talk about that in a minute. In any case, they talked to this alien at length, and eventually the alien revealed that he had a communication device on the crashed craft that allowed him to communicate with his home planet. They were able to eventually talk to him because even though his language was very difficult to comprehend, and I'll talk about that in a minute, they taught him English, basically.
All right, that's Len Kasten talking about Project Serpo. We are going to have part 2 of Len Kasten's speech tomorrow night at the same hour. I am Rob McConnell. This is the X-Zone. We'll return. Don't go away.
Little children aren't the only ones afraid of the dark. Millions of soldiers return from war zones with PTSD, anger, frustration, fear, and loneliness, much of which surfaces during the darkness of the night. You have the chance to change the lives of these American heroes. Songs and Stories for Soldiers.us provides free MP3 players for these men and women. With a list of 3 million songs in 16 different styles, 100,000 audiobooks, and 30,000 old-time radio programs, every veteran can find something to soothe and comfort them at no cost. All our players contain an 8-hour audio program designed to help veterans fall asleep. With 1,500 plus vets now participating, it's our goal to deliver 10,000 audio players this year. Go to our website at songsandstoriesforsoldiers.us. Help us help a veteran make it through the night.
I am Dr. Carl O'Helvey, founder, president of a new cancer foundation focusing on evidence-based physical, mental, and spiritual interventions, including natural cancer cures, prayer, meditation, affirmations, nutrition, and other related holistic cancer prevention and cure modalities. These are used in cancer education, research, and financing care. I ask for your help to continue this important work by donating at www.holisticcancerfoundation.com.
You're listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. If you enjoy reading a good mystery with a touch of the paranormal, then you'll love From Out of the Woodwork by William S. Peckham. Sean Kennedy, a Toronto contractor, buys derelict houses, guts them, and turns them into multi-family dwellings. When Sean buys 29 Livery Lane, a century house in ruins, and starts the renovation, the house fights back. He is visited by ghosts of owners past. His visions are triggered by touching an oak mantle, reading a faded letter, opening an old locket, or opening a brand new casket in the basement. These visions will take you on a trip across southern Ontario from Niagara Falls to Toronto to Kingston. From Out of the Woodwork is now available in paperback and on your favorite electronic reader. To
To order your copy of From Out of the Woodwork, go to www.williamspeckham.com. That's www.williamspeckham.com.
Accepting the G-forces, when you're flying a aircraft or coming out of a dive, and that kind of thing.
So that was Bill describing it, and that confirms the fact that they brought the Kingman craft to Area 51, and he worked on it with a team of other engineers and scientists. What he said was that every once in a while they'd run into a mathematical problem, they'd need some help. They said, bring in the alien. And so this was the alien that they brought in. You'll notice he does not look like anything we've seen about the Eben. The Ebens were not cooperative mathematically, but we had others. We had other aliens working with us, and here's one of them. And Bill Uhouse drew this sketch of the alien and somehow got it out to the world. And this is what he looked like. And he would answer when they came some really heavy mathematical problems. He would help them. They did have problems in translation, but he was very helpful, and of course, he was a scientist. Kennedy then. So they worked on this craft until 1958. In 1958, Uhouse succeeded in building the simulator. By 1962, we had a working anti-gravity aircraft, identical perhaps to the Kingman craft. This was at the point at which Kennedy became president. They did not tell Kennedy anything about this developmental work. He was kept in the dark about certain things, but he was told about the so-called exchange program. Kennedy, of course, from the very beginning, wanted some sort of a triumph in space, because when he became president, at the same time, the Soviets had just sent Yuri Gagarin in orbit around the Earth, so they were ahead of us. They were way ahead of us. And Kennedy was determined to make space his priority. This is a speech he gave at Rice University, September the 12th, 1962. Many years ago, the great British explorer George Mallory, who was to die on Mount Everest, was asked why did he want to climb it. He said, because it is there. Well, space is there, and we're going to climb it, and the moon and the planets are there, and new hopes for knowledge and peace are there. And therefore, as we set sail, we ask God's blessing on the most hazardous and dangerous and greatest adventure on which man has ever embarked.
We're going to hold it there for today. We'll have part 2 of Len KASTEN talking about Planet Serpo tomorrow night here on the X Zone between 7 p.m. Eastern and 8 p.m. Eastern, which is, 4 to 5 p.m. Pacific. Wow, strange things here in the X Zone. Now, there is something I must tell you about Planet Serpo. Many people believe it was a perpetrated hoax in order to bring in certain members of the UFO community to wearing egg on their face, so to speak. But there are so many who believe that it really happened, and as you can hear, Len KASTEN is one of those who believes with all his heart that Project Serpo is real. He also believes that the Roswell crash of 1947 is real. He also believes that the Betty and Barney Hill abduction are real. And you can hear the same people that work within the UFO community, pulling together. You heard Stanton Friedman, you heard Timothy Schmidt, and they were just two of the people. But as we go on with this, part 2, tomorrow night here on the X Zone, we'll hear more, and we'll understand more of what is going on and why more and more people believe that this is truly a hoax. I'll be back on the other side of the news at 6.5 minutes past the top of the hour as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, on the Mutual Broadcast Network, on the X Zone Broadcast Network, and you can visit us online at www.xzoneradiotv.com or X Zone Radio. I am Rob McConnell. We'll be back on the other side of the news. Don't go away.